I'm addict named James. And real grateful to be here, grateful to be clean tonight, and feel real privileged to be up here doing this. I'd like to thank this convention committee for asking me to do this. This is, it's not awkward, but it is kind of, it's not an easy thing to do right now. But I'm real grateful for the Narcotics Anonymous process that I can, in spite of how I'm feeling and what's going on in my life, I can get that out the way and do what was done for me when I got here. And that was somebody carried the message to me, a message that I didn't necessarily want, but it was real profound, because I know a lot of my life I was told what I should do, what I ought to do, what I better do, but nobody ever told me how to do it till I got here. So I'm real grateful for what happened when I got here. I don't really want to talk too much about myself per se, but I will share a little bit, because I guess I have to share a little bit, because Jadis, we've been around each other in recovery for a long time, and she said she never, I don't know how, I just heard her speak, and this is her first time ever hearing me speak, and we go way back. I think we go all the way back to Calvin, remember? But anyway, I tried not to think about this too much, and the more you try not to think about something, the more you think about it, and finally I just shut my brain off and just said, whatever it's going to happen, it's going to happen, But what I was remembering was, for some reason, the first feeling I ever remember in my whole life was fear. And I don't remember my first cookie, my first ice cream, my first soda, or nothing, but I remember that first feeling of fear. And that fear followed me and grew my whole life till I got to this process. And that it happened, I'm not even clear of what happened. I know something happened, but I'm not really clear what it was. I just remember I couldn't have been no more, maybe 3 years old, 2 or 3 years old, and my mother let me go spend the night at this lady's house. And I don't remember, I remember I didn't want to go to her house. That's all I remember. And I just remember I was real afraid, and I just remember her giving me a bath, and from that point forward, everything went blank. So I don't know what happened. I can't even say what happened, but I know something wasn't kosher with that situation, because I just remember all that overwhelming fear as a little kid, and I didn't know how to articulate that to anybody, and I was being pushed to do something I didn't want to do, and that was it. That was fear. And the next feeling I remember was the elation of sweets. I think my mother sent me to the store, and she had some change left, and I wasn't supposed to spend her change, but I looked over and I saw a Hostess cupcake, and that thing looked awesome, and my young mind had all this money left, so I bought the cake, and I ate it, and I went home. Of course, her change was short, and of course I got in trouble, but it was worth it, because that cake, I just remember how good that cake tasted, and being an addict, that was, I think I was born with the propensity to be an addict. I don't think I caught this disease along the way. I think it was just, I had a propensity for being an addict, and that's something innate I couldn't control about it. Maybe if I never used any drugs, it might not have manifested itself, or it might have manifested itself in another direction, but I just think it's something innate in me that I was born with, because I could see just odd behavior from as long as I can remember. And I remember people call it thinking out of the box now, but my brain always was, because I remember this incident when I was a little boy. We had a mouse in the house, right? So I didn't want to catch it the conventional way with a mouse trap. So what I did was I rigged up a fishing rod with a little piece of cheese on it, and I put it about an inch off the ground, and I figured the mouse would come try to get the cheese. He would catch it, he'd get hooked on it, and I would Go catch him like that. And y'all laughing. I couldn't wonder why. I couldn't figure out why my family was laughing, because to me that was a brilliant idea. Because I mean, that was a brilliant idea, and I have a lot of thoughts like that. That are kind of odd. They make sense to me, but people look at me kind of, what's up with you? But I'm kind of okay with that today, and I wasn't okay with that for a long time, because when people laughed at me, it made me feel bad, so I didn't want people to laugh at me. I'd rather for you to laugh with me. But the next thing I can remember feeling real strongly was feeling insecure and inadequate. I don't know where these feelings came from. It just, because I was too young to process through them. I didn't have no sponsor back then, so I didn't have nobody I could call and talk to about them. But I just remember feelings of fear and inadequacy and insecurities, and all these things was inside of me, and I didn't know how to process them. And so as being a little kid like that, I learned ways to process those feelings. And daydreaming was one of my favorite escapes. I used to like to hide in the closet and just make up where I was. I could do that for hours at a time. And then I found books, and I used to read a lot of books. And I remember in high school we had to, one English class, his teacher was a reading fanatic, and we had to read like 25 novels and do a book report on them. And she had this long list, and when I looked at the list, I had read 15 of the books already, so I was ahead of the game. That was kind of person. I was, it's like it says in our fourth step, sorting through that confusion and contradictions in your life. Because I was a real contradiction. I baffled them, because I was an honor student and a discipline problem at the same time. And they had a hard time figuring out what is wrong with him. Because I liked the attention, because I come from a big family. I was in the middle of the family. But one strange thing used to happen. I look at it today, it don't make no sense. I don't see how I did it, but I must have been practicing to get the NA a long time ago, because it was 10 of us, and a lot of days I didn't eat what the rest of the family ate. I could manipulate my mother into cooking me something different. Now don't ask me how I did that, and she was a single parent, so she didn't have a lot of money, so how the world I pulled that off, I don't know, other than I was in training to get here, and so I was learning well, and I was learning fast, and but it's kind of how a little of my background. It's like when the drugs came along, I was like a sitting duck for them, because I was always looking for something to make me feel different, or something to make me fit in, to where I don't know. The funny thing about it, I look at it now, I don't know what I wanted to fit into. I just didn't feel like I fit in, so I wanted something to make me feel like I fit in. So, when they came along, I was like a sitting duck for them. And the funny thing about it, I don't remember particularly wanting them or needing them or nothing. The guy just said he had some, and I said, okay, but I just remember it gave me that feeling that I was looking for before I went overboard. And so I think I went overboard from Jump Street, because for some reason he gave me this stuff to drink. It was about 90-something degrees outside, and I drank half the bottle, and I got crazy, and my only solution to feeling like that was to go home and eat a bunch of ice cream. So you can imagine how sick I was for the next few days. But I learned then that there was going to be consequences for my action, but if I could get that feeling, it would be worth it. And that transferred itself in my life. It's like probably one of the things that made using real attractive to me was I had like a couple of devastating events happen to me. My first girlfriend, it must have been about 15, 16 years old, she left me for an older man. I think he was 18. You're laughing, but that was pain. I didn't know how to deal with that pain. And 6 months later, my mother died, So it's like the two most important women in my life, those pillars of strength in my life were gone. And that's some pain that I didn't know how to deal with. And I didn't know how it was going to affect my life from that point, but I could see a lot of things increasing in my life. And I didn't want to deal with my mother's death, so I didn't talk about it. You know, I didn't talk about it for about 5 years. I used to get irritated with my family because they'd be putting memorials in the paper, and I just didn't want to talk about it. Because if I acknowledged it, that meant it happened, and that I would have to feel it. So if I didn't talk about it, it didn't happen, you know, and that came back to haunt me later on in my recovery, you know, because I didn't know how to process grief, and lo and behold, 25 years after her death, it showed up on my doorstep like it had just happened. You know, I was riding down the street in the car, and this song came on the radio, and I just busted out crying and didn't know why. And I went home that night, and I couldn't hardly sleep, and for the next few days, I thought I was losing my mind. And because it was like it had just happened. And I remember talking to a few people about it, and so I literally thought I was losing my mind. I said, that happened 25 years ago. Why am I feeling this now? And I started talking to some people about it, and what I found out was I didn't process that grief. And what I learned was if you don't do that, it'll come back. It could come back days, months, years, or decades later. And it came back on me 25 years later. And because of this process, I was able to process through that, you know. And today, I still feel it, but that pain is not as intense, you know. But that's kind of like where I came from, you know. And you know, I did most of the things all of us do, you know. I tried to figure out how to live like a social addict, being using addict, you know. It's like I wanted to use socially. I wanted social acceptability. I wanted to be able to sit in the living room and watch the football game or basketball game and shoot dope, you know. I mean, that was my picture, and I figured I'd die an old man in a rocket chair smoking on a bone. You know, that's the way I pictured my life to be. And I didn't know the consequences that was going to come with the way I thought and the way I responded to life. And so needless to say, I traveled that road that most of us traveled. You know, I did the geographical, and I had some brilliant ideas along the way, because I left town because I figured where I lived was the problem, and when I got to this new place, who showed up? You know, me. And I shared this story before. I don't know how we found each other, but I was riding down the street one day, and this guy's car, I was in a new city, didn't know nobody there but my brother, and this guy's car had stopped on him. So I decided to give him a ride, and I had been in this city like a couple months, and I had chilled out, and my brother didn't know what I was really going on with me, and I picked this guy up and gave him a ride, and he asked me one of those questions that we asked each other. He said, "Do you mess around?" And I said, "With what?" And he told me what his job was. You know, he was the dope man. And he said, "Well, for giving me a ride, I'll turn you on to a package." And I thought about it, and I said, "Well, it's been a couple months, you know, I deserve one." But all of a sudden, with that one, I started that same vicious cycle in a whole new place, you know. And it didn't take long. It was amazing how, in short order, I was back to what I was running from. There I was in a whole new place with all new people doing the same old thing. And you know, and then when I'm a good addict too. You start putting the heat on me, I'm gonna break camp, you know, or you start to catch up with me, I'm gonna break camp. And I felt life catching up with me, so I broke camp and made another geographical, and so then I started looking for these. I knew something was wrong many years ago, and I was looking for answers many years ago. So I went on a religious search. I figured, let me go on this search for God, you know. And I was rebellious against what I was taught, you know, as a kid. So I wasn't going for none of that Sunday school, go to church, all that stuff. I was looking for something Eastern, mystical, you know. I wasn't going for nothing normal. And I went through a few different things. I remember going to, I was going to be a Muslim. I went to the Nation of Islam, and they was all right. I could go along with them, other than they didn't want me to smoke cigarettes, they didn't want me to smoke weed, they didn't want me to get high. They had too many rules, you know. And Yeah, I tried a couple other places. Everybody had these rules. They just wouldn't go by James's rules. And I remember reading, like I said, I'm an avid reader, and I remember reading about this. It was two of them that I was trying to find them. I just said, where I'm from, Gary, they weren't there. It was this Coptic church. I heard they was in Miami, and they smoked weed as a part of their ceremony. So I wanted to find them, or I wanted to find the Rastafarians. And if I could have found either one of them, I probably would have been religious at that point, but I couldn't find either one of them. So I couldn't find, but I was still searching, and then I realized I got so frustrated with that, I gave up that search. And, I continued to go downhill, and I tried the psychiatric route, and I don't knock psychiatry because they have their place, but the only problem, I remember talking to the psychiatrist, and I often share this story because it showed me where I was. The guy, I went to see a psychiatrist, but he was asking stupid questions. He's asking questions like, do you use drugs? No, I don't use drugs. Do you drink? I drink a beer every now and then. So with me telling him that on top of what I was telling him what was going on with me, he sent me to the mental health institution. And he sent me into this little mental health place, and this almost scared me into getting clean. He told me I was supposed to go talk to this little group, and there was a group of people sitting in this place, and I asked them, is this the place? And they said, yeah. And I said, is that the room? They said, yeah. And but I looked around, and all of a sudden I started noticing these people. And I noticed this lady, she was knitting, but she didn't have nothing, she had no yarn or no knitting needle. And there was this guy, he was having a conversation with himself, and this other guy, he was sitting there with his legs shaking real hard, and it's like, then I said, I got mad at the psychiatrist. I said, he's trying to call me crazy. And I got up and left. I never went in, but that almost scared me. I said, he's trying to say I'm crazy, And, those are the kind of things that happen with me, and a lot of other real ugly stuff, and I don't even want to get into that because that's in the past. But that, those are that's the kind of pattern that I could see. I had denial runs deep, but my thing was I just refused to believe that I was that bad, because I had set a criteria that as long as I don't do that, as long as I don't hang out with them, that I wasn't that bad. And if I keep this family and a job, because this guy I was doing this little hustle with, he gave me some excellent information. We were doing this little hustle and we made a lot of money. I said, well, I worked 2 weeks and don't make this much money. I need to quit work and do this. And he was a hustler. He didn't work. He was a hustler. He said, no, man. He said, you got the best hustle in the world. Keep a job. He said, that'll help keep you out of jail. He said, you can do this stuff on the side, but always keep your job. And I took that to heart. But, that kind of, as long as I had a job, it said I wasn't that bad. And that stuck in my head. Well, then I got married. That was going to straighten me out too. I get a wife, get some kids. I have to be responsible. And when I did these things, the funny thing about these things that I would do, they would work for a short period of time. They all worked for a short period of time. I didn't understand I had a permanent condition. I was trying these temporary fixes, but that getting married worked. And my wife had a baby, and this friend that hadn't seen me for a while came by and said he heard I had a baby. Why don't we go get one to celebrate? And I said that's a good idea, And I went with him to get that one, and that was in 1975, and it lasted to 1986 until I got to Narcotics Anonymous. And the progression was all downhill. All those bad and ugly, nasty things that happened to us in active addiction, they were happening to me. And that long list of things that I wasn't going to do, it was about this short when I got here. I was checking them off left and right. Because the more this disease progressed, the more morals don't keep you high out there. You got to throw them out the window. That just won't keep you high. You got to compromise some things. And the funny thing about it is, just like I'm basically a nice guy. I don't like being out in front street. I like blending in the background. I'm not a violent type person, but I look where my disease took me. It took me from little petty thievery to the point of having a gun in my hand. And And for no particular reason, I wasn't mad at nobody or nothing. It's just, I knew if I went with this guy and we did what he wanted to do, that I could get high, you know. And I look at it now, it's almost unfathomable to think of some of the stuff that I actually did, you know. I mean, I remember this guy took $20 from me, and the morals and values we live by, you don't take nothing from me. So I'm riding around for 2 weeks with a gun in the console of my car. If I see him, I'm going to shoot him on sight, and then one day something just smacked me in the head. It's like, you're actually going to kill somebody for $20. And I got rid of that gun, and I never carried a gun since then. Never owned one. It's just I realized where I could take myself with stuff like that, you know, because I'm very extreme in my emotions. I could go from cool, calm, and collected to when I feel the pressure on going to turn into somebody I don't even recognize. So, you know, so today, you know, when I found NA, it was like, it wasn't something that I was looking for. I came here scamming. The scam scammed me, because when I came here in '86, I wasn't looking for no recovery and none of that stuff. I was looking to get the heater. I had backed myself into one of them corners where everything was crumbling around me, and I was trying to save my fronts. I had my fronts that I was trying to save, and the only way I could save them was copping out to being an addict, telling everybody I was going to get some help. And I remember I had when I went to that treatment center, they gave me I rejected the answer, but I saw a way to use that answer, because they told me I had a disease, and I said, these people crazy, they don't know what they're talking about, you know, and they didn't look like me, they didn't use where I used, they don't know what they're talking about. But in the back of my mind, I said, disease? I could tell my wife that now when I go blow my paycheck, you know, I got a disease, baby, you know. When I go on a purse and take up money, you know I got a disease. I can't help myself, you know. So I was going to use that. That was going to be a good one for me, you know. But I messed around and came to NA and got a sponsor, you know, because I knew I had proved to myself on my own I would use again. You know, I had no doubt about that. So I needed to come here and buy 6 months worth of time, and that's what I wanted. But I messed around. I did everything they said, and something clicked for me, you know. I went to that one meeting too many, and all of a sudden, you know, what I was planning in the back of my mind didn't make no sense, because I was out of here once I had moneyed up, made a couple clean drops on the job, got the wife on my back. I was out of here. Yeah, I was going to go back to do my thing, and I went to that one meeting too many, and something clicked, and that's why meetings are vital. Even no matter what you're thinking when you get here, you come around this stuff long enough, it'll shift your thinking. And I'm real grateful for that, you know. But in that process, you know, I wound up here, and you know, I like I said, I took some suggestions early on, and this thing started clicking, and I decided I wanted this. You know, I decided that what I came from didn't look so appealing anymore. You know, them nasty, funky dope houses, them guns in your face, and all that stuff. It lost its appeal all of a sudden, and that didn't make. This wasn't always very appealing, because recovery is a wonderful process, but like I tell people, sometimes it makes you feel like a chump, you know, doing the right things for the right reasons, you know, when in the midst of anger, talking about accept powerlessness. That ain't the way I deal with stuff like that, you know. Forgive people, you know. No, I hold grudges for years. I came into the process planning the perfect murder. I mean, I was literally planning the perfect murder, and that's why I know I like to say my God is proactive. You know, when I don't want my God to be reactive, I want my God to be proactive. See, I was planning on killing somebody, and because this guy, I felt like he had did me a dirty deed, and I was just waiting for the seasons to change. I wanted it to be dark when I went to work, and I was sitting there debating whether I was just going to blow his window out and scare him, or whether I just going to take him on out. And my mind said, well, take him all out. He don't deserve to live. He did you a dirty deed, you know. And what he did, he held up my paycheck or something. So I was going to kill him. I mean, that's the mindset that I came in here with. But, you know, in this process, I can't live in recovery with that kind of a mindset. This is about change. This is about finding out who I am and living that to the fullest. And that's why recovery is so important. You know, that other stuff is just a little bit of who I am, but who I am today is a product of these steps and the principles and service and all that stuff, the fellowship, all that stuff has redefined me. It has reshaped my thinking. My thinking is totally different today than it used to be. And the reason why, what I've learned here is, it's like that concept of powerlessness. That's the first thing they hit us with, powerlessness. Why they hit me with that first? Because my ego is, I don't want to be powerless over nothing. But that's my greatest source of strength today, you know. Because me, I'll be beating my head up against that wall and it ain't going to move. But if I accept powerlessness, I might just go around. I might go open the door instead of beating my head up against the wall. You know, but my ego will tell me I can run my head through that wall. And after a while, you won't be sore no more. You just numb, you know, your head's swole, you know. You don't even recognize pain no more, you know, because pain becomes familiar. It becomes normal, you know. And I don't want to live like that today, you know. So that concept of powerlessness was a real powerful door opener for me. It was that opportunity for me to get better, for me to find out who I was, because without that, I wouldn't have been able to tap into the next one, which is, you know, it's about, we can't believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore it to sanity. And the beauty for me in the steps is, I don't practice a formal religion. And if you ask certain people, they'll say he don't even believe in God, you know, because they associate the two together so much. See, but I don't have to prove what I believe to nobody. I mean, the proof is in my life, you know, because some of these people that claim religion and all that stuff, well, I don't want none of what y'all got, because that stuff looks bogus to me. I don't know what you call that, but you know, but basically, you know, it's like accepting a power greater than myself. See, what I realized today was I was disconnected from that. You know, I was running my life, you know, and I didn't have any connection to anything bigger than myself. And today I see, you know, it's like there's a powerful force in this universe that I could tap into to run my little life. You know, if I just stop and acknowledge it and realize that I'm not in charge, that I don't have all the power, you know, and that changes my thinking. See, because when I think I got the power, my actions show that. When I think there's something bigger than me, I tap into that and my actions change. You know, it literally changes the way I respond to life when I can accept that, you know, and turning that over in the third step, you know, and it's like the step, you know, like that little foundation, doing that, you know, because I had to have a sponsor to kind of like bring me through that, to let me see what that was really all about. Because, you know, why do I need to admit I'm powerless, you know, over my addiction? And the beauty of sponsorship was, my sponsor showed me that they wrote that in the past tense. And I said, that's deep. And I said, well, why did they write that in the past tense? And he told me to keep checking it out. He said, see if you can figure it out for yourself. And I never could. And then finally he told me that, you know, they wrote it in the past tense because I don't have to be powerless anymore. Because I got something working for me now. And I'm not powerless over the disease anymore. You know why? What I'm powerless, I had to understand what I was powerless. I'm powerless over having this disease. I'm not powerless over the disease because I got this program, I got a higher power, I got this fellowship, I got all these things if I utilize them. Now if I don't utilize them, you know, then I'm powerless over the disease because it's going to do whatever it wants with me. But if I utilize what you have given me to deal with this disease, the disease ain't got a chance, you know. And that was good to know. That was good information because that gave me a little hope, you know, because coming here and getting clean, that felt really hopeless. I mean, I didn't want to do this. I'm clean, but I don't want to do this. And I'm looking at behaviors. I'm still going to work stealing every day. I'm still doing a lot of other crazy stuff and don't know why I'm doing it. I got a trunk full of stuff that I used to sell and get dope. Now my trunk is filling up, you know. And I don't know what to do with the stuff, you know. And I mean, that's how retarded this disease will have you. You know, it's like, why are you stealing this? And you ain't selling it, you know. It's like, but it took sponsorship to break that cycle. Because I would go to work every day and fill my little black bag up with goodies. And he finally said, well, why don't you leave the black bag at home? Like, yeah. I mean, I left it at home and I didn't steal nothing. You know, amazing. I couldn't, as smart as I think I am, I couldn't figure that one out. And that's why sponsorship is so vital in this process, you know. But, you know, and then, see, because what I understand is the steps, they paint a picture for me. You know, it's like I come in here and I stop doing what I was doing to kill myself. You know, then I got to learn how to live with the pain of not doing that. And see, I realized as an addict, you know, really more than anything else, I'm an adrenaline junkie. What's going to give me that rush? You know, I ain't got the dope. What's going to give me that rush? You know, so I went on this gambling tangent. I was going to win a whole lot of money. And I remember, I said, if you play a number for a whole month, that number's got to come out. So I was playing this money on this number, and one day I didn't play, and I saw the numbers coming up on TV, and I remember my stomach just flipping and turning, and it's like, oh my God, what is that? You know, and it was like, I remember what my sponsor told me. He said, you're not going to really understand this disease till it has you twisted and turned in a knot in other areas of your life, because you just think dope is your problem. And I learned bit by bit in all those areas that, you know, what my problem truly was and the scope of this disease, you know. But then I get to, you know, after all that, you know, and it's like I get the chance to look at who I am. See, the reason why a lot of that stuff is happening is because I haven't identified what's wrong. As far as I'm concerned, it's normal behavior to do what I was doing. You know, if I see somebody and they look good to me, I act out on lust. You know, what's the big deal? And what I learned in the third step is, you know, it's like, it's the thought before the action behind the thought. I can think whatever I want to think today. I don't have to act out on it. That was the most powerful freedom I ever got in my whole life, that I didn't have to act out on my thinking. Because before, I didn't question my thinking. If I thought it, I did it. You know, it wasn't no in between there. So, and then I realized, you know, that I had to identify some stuff. You know, what was really wrong with me. You know, and that's what that fourth step was about. I was able to, and like most people, I didn't really want to do that. You know, I just want to get clean. I want to get them folks off my back and be all right. I didn't want to do all this work, and that's why somebody hit me with this little stat that I hold true today, that 90% of the people that come to recovery don't stay clean, and 90% of the people that stay clean don't find recovery. Because this is work, and this is not for the faint of heart. You know, I got to look at some ugly stuff about myself that I was going to take to the grave with me. I was going to bury. I didn't want nobody to know that I had been molested. You know, men don't talk about stuff. I don't want to talk about them dirty deeds I did. You know, my mother, poor as we was, I'm going on, she don't give me a nickel for no candy, I go on a person steal it. You know, turn your back. I'm going to get what I want, because I want what I want when I want it. You don't tell me no. You know, I don't understand no. And, you know, and some of that ugly stuff that happened, you know, why it happened. See, because what the sponsor helped me with was the exact nature. In the fourth step, I'm just telling him what manifested. This is what happened. You know, then he peeled the layers off. Okay, we peeled the layer off. You did so-and-so, so-and-so. The exact nature of lust. So I got a new respect for lust today. Peel some layers off, I see greed. Okay, greed took me there? Wow, that's deep. You know, I didn't have that kind of respect for greed, but I saw where greed could actually take me, you know. And, you know, he took me, peeled them layers off, there's ego. You know, that's why you're having the problems, you're having your ego, you know. So, I mean, I was able to identify what was really wrong with me and understand why I did some of the things I did, because I did stuff and didn't understand why I did it. You know, today I have I know what's at the root of my behavior today. It's not I'm just not a robot running around here doing stuff, you know. And that's good to know. See, and with that comes some accountability and responsibility. You know, and that's what the other steps say. I mean, when I look at 6 and 7, you know, I'm looking at those things about me. And what was real profound for me to understand is, as an addict, I'm an extremist. So when I talk about lust and ego and all that stuff, those are normal human emotions gone astray. That's what, you know, when I read in Works How and Why. And the only way for me to understand that, because it's real tricky, it's like I have to eat. How do I know when I'm being greedy? You know, I've given a sexual drive that's given to me by God. How do I know when it's lust? You know, and when I realize what opens the door to the defects is being discontented. When I'm discontented, I open the door to all kind of stuff, because I do things because I don't want to feel things. You know, and as a male, I categorize feelings into masculine and feminine. You know. So if I feel fear, I don't want to feel fear. You know, I think that's feminine. So I'll act like I'm pissed off when really I'm scared to death. You know, but that seems more masculine to be angry. You know, so I embrace that. You know, and that's the confusion and contradiction that was going on that I had to sort through. You know, so I can act appropriately to my feelings today when I'm supposed to feel grief. You know, and it was weird to me, because when I'm supposed to feel grief. I thought I was a pervert, because I would always feel lust. It's like I would try to deal with lust to cover up grief. And then it made sense after a while because, out of lust comes life, so maybe I want to replace the death with life, it kind of, in my weird, warped kind of way, it made sense after a while, but I mean, that's what this program, because this is a transformation process. I'm not supposed to be the same guy I was when I walked in these rooms in 1986. I'm not supposed to be the same guy I was last year. I'm supposed to be constantly evolving into a better person, because that's what this is about. This is not a place to come and convalesce. This is about action, and that's why a lot of people leave, because it's like, I want to go through the steps once and graduate, but I go through the steps once and see how much more work I got to do. And the longer I stay around here, the more responsibility I'm given, because I've evolved to a person that can handle more responsibility. And, because I look at my life today, I could complain about a whole lot of things. About 8-9 months ago, I got an injury. I thought I pulled a muscle in my neck, and I really found out I got 4 messed up discs in my neck. I might not be able to work again. I'm 50 years old. I got less money today than I had in a long time because I don't have any income coming in, and my wife, her income don't cover both of ours. So, but I can face these things and be happy. And you know why? Because of you. Because I've seen you go through these things and be okay. I've seen you go through these things and come and talk about it. I've seen you go through these things and talk about how you're utilizing the steps, how you ain't going to self-destruct. I have some living examples of how to get through these things, and it's you. And I have some people in my life today man, it's truly awesome what recovery can give you if you open yourself up to it. See, I've opened myself up to friendship today. I've opened myself up to sponsorship today. I opened myself up to being sponsored today. So, God has allowed some awesome people into my life. And that's why I get real touchy when you talk about the fellowship. I know we're not perfect. We didn't come in here from choir rehearsal and a Boy Scout meeting. We come in here from the streets, right? So I don't put those overly high expectations on us, but I've met some really awesome people in this process, and it's like, I don't know where my life would be without you today, because there's nothing I've had to face alone in here since I've been here. From early in this process, I had to deal with the death of my sister. I had to deal with surgery. I deal with a lost job. The job I was trying to save, I lost it clean. Just everything that could happen to you happened to me. And that's why I don't want to understand relapse. I don't dog people out that relapse, but I faced all that stuff because I think somebody told me, I heard something real crazy one day, and this was from somebody with a lot of clean time. They said it takes, more courage to come back than to do to stay. And I said, that's the biggest bunch of BS I ever heard, because I've had to face some horrendous stuff and keep showing up, I had major surgery. I've been dealing with chronic pain for the last 12 years, I'm 50 years old. My hair's going off my head and growing out my ears now. Weird stuff be happening to you, stuff like that, I thought I went and got high about it a long time ago. But I got some acceptance about who I am today. That's a part of the aging process. I ain't the greatest looking 50-year-old, but I'm all right for 50. I got on that cross thing today and I exercised I exercise. I try to take care of myself today, and because I know I don't take this life for granted. I appreciate each day I get in this process, because I'm diabetic, and it's like that was a scary process. I had to face that, but all these things I had to face, I had you there for me. You support me, because being an addict, when they told me I had diabetes, my mind said, you're going to be impotent, they're going to start cutting your toes off, you're going blind, and just all kind of crazy stuff went through my head, and I needed you to tell me that I was going to be okay. And I needed my family to tell me that you could be okay. If you take care of yourself, you'll probably be healthier. And that's proved itself true, because I stopped doing a lot of things. It's like Narcotics Anonymous has freed me up from so many things. I thought it was taking stuff away from me, and it was freeing me up from stuff. I don't smoke cigarettes today. As a result of being in this program, I'm free. That was tough. And I empathize with anybody that's having that struggle, man, because that's a tough one, but I'm free from that today. But one thing I know about getting free, I got to be willing to endure some pain. If I ain't willing to endure no pain, I probably ain't gonna get free. Because I'll keep going back to what's familiar. You know, I don't want to take that chance to step out there in no man's land where I don't know what's gonna happen. You know, I know what's happening right here, but if I let go of it, what's gonna happen? Ain't nothing but good things that happen to me when I let go of stuff. I mean, I have a strange diet today. I don't eat meat. You know, I mean, like, to me, I used to love meat. I used to love the smell of bacon in the morning, all that stuff. Now it repulses me. I mean, the thought of it just actually repulses me. And I think I'm a healthy person because I used to be on 2 shots of insulin a day, and I don't shoot insulin today. You know, I'm doing something right, you know. And it's only because of people like you encouraging me. And it was actually at a Narcotics Anonymous convention in Louisville when I made that decision, because I went to Louisville and left my little, I used to have my little insulin and my little machine and stuff with me, and I went to the convention and forgot it. And I was sitting there thinking, it's like I could have got some more. I could have got an emergency. And then I knew some people was coming to the convention the next day, and I had made a call and told them to bring it. But I was sitting there thinking, like, what would I do if I didn't have that stuff, you know? And I said, what do people used to do when they didn't have it? And then it dawned on me, they died, you know? And I said, well, you know, I don't want to be dependent on, I don't want to be dependent on nothing today but you people, a higher power, and these principles. And I made a decision at that point. I was going to change my diet, and I was going to change my lifestyle. You know, so exercise is a part of my day-to-day, you know. And I tell this guy at work that if you walk on the treadmill long enough, it'll make you retarded because you'll start liking it. I look forward to doing that. I couldn't wait to get to, I was disappointed in this gym that got here today, but it was enough for me to work up a good sweat. And that's what I need to do on a daily basis, you know, and to keep myself physically fit and mentally strong. You know, it's like, and what I realized today is when I'm physically fit, I am so much better in all areas of my life. You know, it's like spiritually and emotionally and all those things, I'm able to handle things a lot better. Because you don't know what you're going to have to face from day to day. And I know, like I said, into the steps. And then when I went into 8 and 9, I got a freedom in this process that I didn't know was possible. See, because I came here and I was doing all the right things in the program. And I was doing service work, I was going to meetings, I was sponsoring, I was being sponsored, I was getting pats on the back from y'all. But a lot of times when I went home, I couldn't face the family because I would get, my wife would remind me when we had a dispute about something on TV that, well, if you hadn't sold the kids TV, you know, we wouldn't have this argument, you know. And I was 3 years clean here and that, you know, and it was like I would come here, you raise my self-esteem up, and I'd go around a family member I'd done something to, and my self-esteem would drop, you know. And what 8 and 9 did for me, I had to identify those people that I caused harm to, not worry about what had happened to me, and become willing to correct that, you know, change the relationship, you know. And I always talk about my relationship with my brother. My brother had sold me a car. Well, he made the mistake of giving me the car without getting the money. And he was in the military over in Korea, so he never got paid. So for 8 years, I didn't have a relationship with my brother because I couldn't face him. You know, it was just the bottom line. I couldn't face him. I knew I owed him that money. He had came home a couple times to a funeral or something, and I'm walking on eggshells, wondering when he's going to ask me about that money. The car guy, I don't know what happened to the car. I mean, just, but you know, it's like I didn't have a relationship with him for 8 years. And then, step 9, he was on my 8-step list. I go to him to make the amends, and it blew me out the water. See, you don't know what God has in store for you. Because I go to my brother, it's like, look, man, I know, you know, I messed you around in that car. It's been a long time. I want to make this right for you. And he looked at me real weird. He said, you still thinking about that? I said, yeah, I got this money for you, man. And I'm still trying to do this right. And he said, didn't you say your daughter's about to go to college? I said, yeah. He said, well, give her the money, man. I ain't even thinking about that no more. And I was like stunned. I was dumbfounded. Actually, tears came in my eyes. It's like, man, this ain't supposed to happen like this. Because I'm thinking, well, I owe him interest. It's been 8 years. I have to add the interest. I mean, I was going crazy with it, you know. And all I had to do was take the action. And now me and my brother have a wonderful relationship again. He's a good guy. We're glad to see each other, you know. And that's what these steps could do for you. I got a freedom, because the people I haven't made amends to today, I'm not ducking today, because if I see them, I'm willing to do it. But then, you know, this disease is tricky because I used to get free cable all the time. I knew a guy that worked for the cable company, so I never paid for cable. Well, I pay him $50. He turned my cable on. It'd be on for a year or two. They turn it off. He'll go turn it on. I give him $50 more. That's the way I did cable for years. And then I moved to Indianapolis. You know, I said, well, I don't know how much I owe the cable company and all them people, but I won't do that no more. That's my amends to them. And lo and behold, when I moved to Indianapolis, I'm going to the store, and this guy come up to me and said, hey, man, I'll turn your cable on for $25. And I said, yeah. Then I thought about it. I said I wasn't going to do that no more. And high as cable is, some days I still hate I put them on my list, you know. But I have a freedom today. You know, I don't get my gas cut off today, but they used to cut it off, I cut it back on. I was so pitiful. I worked for the gas company and they cut my stuff off, you know. And they tried their best to not do that to me. They didn't want to do that to one of their employees, but man, I had to use that bill that got too high, you know. So no, I was too stupid to even be embarrassed about it. You know, it's like you're working for the people and they cut your stuff off. That don't make no sense, you know. But I mean, that's the way we live, and I don't live like that today. You know, if I'm having a struggle today, it's not because of my stupidity. It's just life circumstances, you know. And I'm so grateful that I don't measure my recovery by stuff, because I'm not one of the people. Well, I'm not into a lot of stuff, but I haven't accumulated a lot of stuff since I've been clean. It just didn't work out like that for me. Some people come here and they credit get right and they buy all this stuff. Well, I owed the IRS ungodly amount of money when I got here. It took me 10 years, and I'd never finished paying them off. It's just the law said they couldn't take no more from me. That's the kind of life I live. And a couple of people, when I tried to go get some credit, they said, "Did you have a business that failed or something?" It's like, no. I was just an everyday working fool that thought he could get over, you know, and it cost me, you know. I mean, but you know, in the steps, you know, I have a chance to, that, like I said, that freedom that I got from 8 and 9, it's like I could face anybody today. There's people that I owe amends to today that I'm not ducking anymore. If I see them, it'll happen. And the biggest amends I had to make was to unknown, because I hurt so many unknowns. And that's why I do so much service. You know, H&I and PI and all those things have allowed me to make amends to unknown, because when I go into those places, I don't have to know those people. I don't have to expect anything in return. I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing, because I think there was a higher calling for me. It took NA to get me connected with that. See, I thought my higher calling was to get high as I could and sit around and philosophize about some stuff I didn't know nothing about, really. But, you know, it's like recovery is allowed me that to happen for me, you know. And then I look at the 10th step, how it really helps me today, because with this chronic pain, occasionally I have to take medication. I take a minimum amount, so I don't have to justify that or feel no guilt about it and be a martyr about it. But I had to take some one day, and it made me feel like I used to feel when I was out there, you know, because I had to take some Vicodin. I didn't like Vicodin out there, but I liked something that made you feel similar to that, you know. And I took some Vicodin one day, and I was real irritable. I was snapping at people, and I don't usually snap. I'm probably one of the most consistent people you ever meet in recovery. But that particular day, I was snapping left and right, and recovery has allowed me to build a wonderful relationship with my grandsons. I got a second chance at fatherhood. You know, what I missed out with my daughters, you know, I can do with my grandsons today. And I have a good relationship with them today, you know. But I was snapping that day, and I remember at the end of the day, my youngest grandson came up to me and said, "You don't like me no more, do you?" And I said, "What?" He said, "You act like you don't like me no more." And it's like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, yeah, I've been snapping at everybody. I always holler. You got to holler at him. He's 8 years old. He'll just, he'll run over you if you don't say nothing to him. But that particular day, it must have hit him pretty deep, because he was in tears, and he said, and told me I didn't like him. It's like, oh, man. Well, you know, after that, I did a 10th step, and I looked at my day, and I had been snapping at everybody. And the next day, you know, I started off, of course, with my wife, but sometimes I think we get a pass on the wives, because I think they push your buttons on purpose sometimes, you know. But really, I don't get a pass with her. I had to make amends to her. I had to make amends to my grandson. I had to correct that. I couldn't let that pile up. And that's what that 10th step helps me do. Clear away that wreckage of the presence, so I don't let that build up where people are mad at me and I'm mad at people. I don't want to live in anger today. I don't want to live in resentment today. I want to be free, happy, joyous, and free, and I can't do that being angry, And so, as I go through the steps, in that 11th step, it was a real powerful step for me. For me, I think they wrote this book for me. I was born in 1952, and NA came about in 1953, so they knew I was coming. And a lot of the things that I see in there, it's like it fits me like a glove, because it tells me things that I don't have to be to get this program. I don't have to conform to anybody else's ideals to get this program. And they say your greatest value is in being in yourself. And we all come to our own understanding of this. Now, that don't mean I get to no radical understanding of it where I'm going to change the steps and all that other stuff, but I, as an individual, can come to my understanding. My sponsees don't have to understand this program exactly how I do. There's some basic things that, you can't negotiate on, but they don't have to understand this program exactly like I do, and I don't require that of them, because they're their own person, and they're not going to see things the way I see it, and I'm grateful for that. They're individuals, and they're knuckleheads anyway. They don't listen to what I found in sponsorship, when they're new and scared and coming here and their ass is raw, they listen to everything you say. When they get their feet up under them, think they know a little something, oh my God. Oh, you can't tell them nothing. All you can do is be there when they come to you, when they fall on it, And that's my job today, just to be there for them, when they get enough pain, they want to work a step, or they create enough pain in somebody else's life, they're feeling guilt, I'm there for them, Some people teach you well how to do that. I ain't calling no names. BJ. No, but it's been a real joy just growing up in this process, and that's what I feel like. It's like I remember looking around at my family, and I was like, at the time I was about 30-something years old, I'm saying, these people really are depending on me to take care of them, and I don't even feel like a man myself. I still feel like a little boy, but today I feel like an adult. I feel like a grown man, and because this program tells me that I need to grow up. And that's what I'm doing. I'm growing up into being who I am, and that don't always please people. I was a notorious people pleaser before I got here. Everybody liked me. Brother back there, they used to call me cool because I was cool with everybody, And but today I don't have to be cool with everybody. I could be me. You got to accept or reject me for who I am, not who you want me to be. Because if I don't like your music, I ain't dancing to it today. I am who I am. And I know I'm not going to be friends with everybody. There's too many people around here, for one thing, for all of us to be buddy friends, but I have some people, I have a support network today that I wouldn't trade for anything, because they as much as they think I've been there for them, they've been there for me. Because each one of my sponsees have a quality that I don't see in myself. And they have some powerful stuff going on in their lives, and I don't just focus on where they're sick at. It's like, I've learned something from each and every one of them about being a man, about being a father, about a whole lot of things, about overcoming fear and just a lot of things I've learned from them. So it's definitely a two-way street. And some things have been happening lately that really, it's like I said, I've been struggling, and it's never have to be alone in this process and have people, see your pain and feel your pain. It's awesome. It really is, because I had friends out in the street, and we cared about each other, but we cared as much as we could as fiends, because that's what we were, fiends. We tried to look out for each other, but if stuff got tight, I had to leave you hanging. And I understood, if stuff got tight for you, you had to leave me hanging. But today, the people in my life don't leave me hanging today. And that's deep, The relationship I have with my family today is really deep, My oldest daughter, we had a real struggle because she thought I didn't know nothing. And When she's around 14, 15 years old, we just had a real struggle. And I told my wife at the time, I said, we probably ain't even get along until she gets about 25 and get some lumps and bumps in that head and understand that I wasn't trying to be mean to her, that, you know. And, but before she got 25, when she got around 22, we started developing a relationship, you know. And we have a good relationship today. She's like 28, and we talk to each other almost every day, you know. Me and another guy, we nicknamed our oldest kid Gator, you know, after that character in Jungle Fever, you know, because I love my daughter, but one day I realized that she wasn't the smartest child that I had. No, she had this car she was driving, and I looked at the car one day, and the tires were so bald that I could see wiring. I said, we call her Niece. I said, Niece, that tire's so bald you could see the air in it. And she came over, she said, where, Daddy? I said, oh my God. But I love her to death. She's my oldest child. When she was born, to see her, I just remember getting a rush from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. I never had a feeling like that, you know, except for when I saw my kids born. It's like it was just a rush. It was amazing. I think because they look like me too, that helped. You know? But no, I mean, recovery. I mean, these are the things in life that I can appreciate that I missed out on before. You know, the first half of their life I was using. You know, my grandson, they never known me using. I've been clean their whole entire lives. And matter of fact, my oldest grandson, he got mad when his mother told him that I was an addict. And he didn't understand the concept, and she said, yeah, he's like one of them dope fiends you see in the neighborhood. And he got mad at her and said, no, he's not. And I had to gingerly tell him, yeah, I used to be like that. And my youngest grandson, he came to me one day, he said, I got to talk to you. And I said, what's the problem? He said, I got to beat this boy up at school. I said, what? Because I teach him not to fight. I said, you can defend yourself, but don't start a fight. You know, I don't care what the schools say. If somebody hits you, you got a right to defend yourself. But he said, I got to beat this boy up. And I said, why? He said, he was talking about you. He called you ugly. I said, that ain't no big deal. He said, no, he can't talk about you. I'm beating him up. I said, no, don't beat him up. You're going to get in trouble. He said, well, I'm going to talk about his mama then. And I couldn't say nothing. But, you know, in his own innocent way, he was saying how much he loves me, you know. And, you know, I could appreciate that today, you know. And that's only as a result of coming to this program, surrendering to these principles, allowing myself to become the person I'm supposed to be. I never was supposed to be that person I was. Like I say, I have some kind of odd views about God, because I think that's just a word we all agree on. You know, it's like it's a different concept for everybody in here, you know. Like if you ask 5 different people about me, you might get 5 different answers, but I'm the same person. And I see God the same way. You know, that's a word that we agree on. But I see that power as proactive in my life. The things that power had to react to was me, because I was given a choice. I'm not a robot. I don't operate on instincts. I was given a choice about what I could do now. I've been saved a few times because of them choices, but I don't think a loving, caring power would have sent me through the hell that I sent myself through. So I take responsibility for that, you know. But I'm grateful that power saved me to get to you, you know, so I could find out who I was and what I was supposed to be doing with my life. And I'm happy today. In spite of all the struggles going on, I'm a happy person. I don't wake up every day sad and sorry about today. I'm really glad to face every day and its challenges. And that's a result of this program, these principles, and having people like you in my life. And that's why I defend you to the death. Even when you get on my nerve, even when I don't feel like coming around, I still come around, because I know those people that didn't feel like coming around, when I showed up at the door, they was here. You know, and I'm grateful for those people, you know, that was here, that took me under their wings and helped me build a foundation in this process to become the man I am today. And I'm not a bad guy today, you know. I'm looking at these, I call the clowns row here, you know. And I mean, all these guys are real special in my life. We have a sponsorship family, you know. We get together and we go through the steps and we do different things, and we're connected like all throughout the country. You know, my grandson was amazed. He was asking me about places that I'd been. And he said, "You been to Detroit before?" I said, "Yeah, I've been to Detroit." "You been to New York?" "Yeah, I've been to L.A." And I was wondering why he was asking me all these questions. He said, "You went to Toronto?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You've been out to all the NBA cities." He kind of blew me out the water. But all of that was the result of this program, you know. And a couple of these brothers in here I've been coast to coast with, you know. And it's, you know, it's been the joy just knowing them, you know, because, like I say, it's like doing this alone would have been impossible, you know. But I had to come in here and I had to surrender. I had to accept that I was an addict. I had to accept that God didn't bring me here by accident. It was some proactive work he was doing, you know. I'm trying to get you right. And the only way, I've sent you to church, I sent you to the mosque, I sent you to temples, I sent you everywhere. You wouldn't get right, you know. So he sent me to NA. And I'm finally getting it right. And, you know, I remember this little prayer this lady told me about when she was speaking one day. She said, "God, please fill my mouth with worthwhile stuff and nudge me when I've said enough." I think I've said enough.